natalo si Rojas, nanalo kunwari si Binay, or nanalo si Edu, o, di ba? Whatever. You don't think they're gonna say, hey guys, dinaya ako ng COMELEC, dinaya ako ng automation.
Of course they will.
Yeah. Now, where are we and where do we hold the integrity of each of this institution called the COMELEC to collate and to put and proclaim the mandate of the people?
You see, Ari,
What do we have, where do we stand, and what do we do?
it's easy to accuse the COMELEC.
But in this case, they're the only arbiter. There's no other.
Correct. But
Wala nang iba. We can't blame GMA anymore. Baka sabihin pa sa election, si GMA kasi, ayan na naman, balik na naman sa everything that goes wrong. It's gotta be GMA's fault. That's what's happened in the last 3-6 years.
Harry, there is always a presidential electoral tribunal wherein the COMELEC will no longer participate.
That's in the House of Representatives.
No, presidential.
Presidential
The
tribunal,
House
yes.
of Representatives has a House of Representatives electoral
HRET,
tribunal.
HRET, yeah.
Hear it or HRET.
HRET.
So, when it comes to this, they can say many things against the COMELEC. But to prove it is another thing. If they are, as you said, final arbiter, if they are discontented with the judgment of the COMELEC, they can always go up. They can always go to the Supreme Court. But when it comes to jurisdiction on presidential election and vice presidential, it's always the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. Out na riyan ang COMELEC. Now, in addition to...
Sila nagde-declare kung sino nanalo, sino natalo.
Yes, kung tatanggapin...
Regardless.
Kung tanggapin mong talo ka, okay lang. Kung hindi
kung
mo
hindi nga tanggapin.
Kaya nga, you can always go up. You
I
can
agree.
always,
Ang mangyayari,
you can always go up.
magpuproklama sila local at national. Kasi they cannot
Ano
afford...
easily said, but whether the people are gonna accept it or not are two
Pero Harry,
different
that's another
things.
thing. But they cannot afford to say na, sorry, hindi namin nabilang. Sorry, nag-fail ang system. They will just declare and say, kung may reklamo kayo, magprotesta kayo.
Pero hindi nga pwede. The failure of protest takes 3 years to 6 years. I mean, my gosh, you file a case in this country, 50 years later, you're still in court. Patay na yung nagpa-file ng case. I know some land cases that are still ongoing until now.
But they cannot afford not
The
to
institution
declare.
of the judiciary is in question, di ba, today.
I came up with a word for it. Constructive automation.
Ano yung constructive automation?
They will say that there was substantial compliance with the automation law, and constructively, with a few hitches here and there, it's been successful. Therefore, they could proclaim based on the data available.
Let's go to the political side. Natalo nga yung supposedly, alam mo naman mga surveys The surveys have already concluded the winners and the losers of this election. We already know based on media, be it true or otherwise. Natalo si Noynoy. Front leader siya supposedly. Natalo si Rojas. He's supposedly the survey favorite. Diba? And the network favorite. Natalo. Lumabas sila. They condemned it and they said, people power tayo. Tama, mali.
Para sa akin, mali. Bakit gagamitin mo ang people power? There is always the court.
What do
There
we do?
is always the COMELEC.
What do we do with these people that go to the streets?
These should be arrested for being lawless elements, trying to destabilize the institution, going back to your institution. They're trying to stabilize the institution. Once you stabilize the institution...
But Frank, aren't our institutions under attack today? Look at Ampatuan. There was a murder of 57 people. Most people said, well, whether true or not, I mean, I'm not the legal side, I'm not the lawyer, that this guy Saldi Ampatuan was actually in the dirt of it all, di ba? Pinakawalan yan based on an alibi, which is basically the weakest defense in anything. Again, that's the institution of the judiciary, di ba? The Department of Justice. Again, that's been broken down. The institutions that are now that are beginning to malfunction because of what you call the overnight, how do you say it, appointments of the president. Walang nangyayari, walang nakakagalaw, walang gumagalaw. Now we have the institution of the COMELEC in charge of proclaiming the true mandate of the people, hindi na susunod because alam mo naman dito, wala natatalo, nadadaya, lahat ng... I don't understand it. Let's suppose 8 candidates, 1 only has to win out of the 9. 1 wins, the 8 got into the street, udyukin ng tao, labas tayo sa kalye, mali, nadaya tayo lahat. Ano maganda? Sabihin mo sa sundalo, barili mo lahat yan lumabas sa kalye?
We have to educate.
Hindi pwede.
We
My
have
gosh,
to educate the people not to ever swayed or carried or be invited by people who try to mislead them. Why go to the street? Do we have no more institutions where to go? That way we will be spreading chaos and anarchy
So in other words,
and violence in the street.
We should not accept the fact that people are saying institutions are failing us. It's not true.
No, it's not true.
So the release of Ampatuan, the 57 people never died.
Well,
It's an imagination. It's a figment of our imagination.
Okay.
That did not occur. Di ba?
Okay, Harry. Since you are insistent on that, let me
Dr.
tell you.
Grego.
Let me tell you. Ha?
Yes, sir.
Talaga namang wala naman talaga doon sa crime scene. Yung dalawa, yung Saldi Ampatuan at saka ano. The Supreme Court has ruled many times. In the case of Villarosa, the murder case of Villarosa, governor and congressman.
Si Goy Leon.
No,
Goy
the
Villarosa.
husband.
Ah, the husband.
Si Joe. The Supreme Court acquitted him on the basis that he was not in the crime scene.
Talagang wala.
Wala naman
Pero
talaga.
perception, nandun siya.
Perception, nandun siya. Ang perception, siya pang nag-order. Mahirap i-prove yun. There are so many cases in starry diseases rendered by the Supreme Court.
So it's irresponsible media.
Because the media is being swayed and overcarried by the emotion of the 57 people. 37 of them were media people.
Correct.
Medyo ang sympathy nila andon dahil media. But if we try only to use sound reasoning, sound judgment, let's not be carried by our emotions.
That's why I always put that disclaimer based on my hindi legal, di ba?
Yes,
At
oo.
when do we come up, again, I asked this question last week, public indignation versus reality and or legal. Public outrage or public opinion versus decisions being made against the people. Di ba? Should the people fear government? Or
No,
should not the government
Mayroon
fear
pala
the
issue
people?
related sa
way.
question mo.
It should be this way. Should the government be too strong enough to protect the people? Or should the people be too strong enough to protect the government? That should be the balancing
Who wins in that?
parallelism. Huh?
Who wins in that?
Well, in my case, there's to be balance. The government must always be strong
Firm.
to protect the people. The people must likewise be strong to protect themselves against the abuses of the government. Going back to Ampatuan. Okay.
We're talking perception, we're not talking legal.
Yes, oh.
No, I don't know what the legal, and I don't want to discuss it on here, simply because I don't think any of us are have the legal
Yes,
expertise.
but I am just following your
yeah,
sequence because you made
Tama,
mention
tama,
of
tama yan.
Ampatuan. And so many people have not yet heard, perhaps,
No.
of what I'm saying now. I am saying the opposite.
Sige, please, please.
Huh?
I'm glad somebody's going to say something against it. Sige, go.
Well, people may hate me for this.
No, if
Especially-
it's the truth,
Yes.
let the hate be whatever. It's been misdirected. But go ahead.
Correct. But what I'm trying to express here is a reality. So many decisions, as I've said, have already been rendered by the Supreme Court that a principal suspect who was not really in the crime scene could not be
Physically.
could not be convicted.
Responsible, yes.
Convicted on the basis of circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence.
Parang gano'n,
suspect.
parang gano'n. I'm following
Circumstantial,
you.
narinig daw nung isa. Narinig daw ng isa na nag-order daw si ganun-ganun. Hearsay pa. Mahirap yun. That's why...
The reason I draw that, Dr. Grego, that's why I bring that in the front of our conversation. Because here, it is perception that Zaldi Ampatuan is the killer. Now, whether it is real or not, this guy, Agra, is saying, hindi, ito yung legal niya na he's betting his career. Now, of course, there are what you call people who are against GMA, the opposition, saying, alam mo, tao niya yan, si Agra, ganito, kaya gano'n nangyayari, nabili yan kasi mayaman. No, I know. I'm just saying perception.
Yeah.
When does perception begin and end?
On the issue of
perception
perception,
is not an evidence.
alam mo, on the
Agra
issue
is right in his decision.
On the issue
Tama
of
si Agra.
perception, dapat inalaw na lang ng COMELEC yung parallel count. Para humupa yung
Inalaw na
duda.
lang.
Para humupa yung duda ng tao.
Why do you think the COMELEC is being difficult. In spite of all the people and all the different groups